Well, hey, everybody. We're back on the Hope Filled Fiction blog this week with one of my favorite guests, Amanda Cox. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah,
So good to be back chatting with you.
yeah, I love having you here. I think you've been with me now every year for quite a while.
Yeah.
Um, and I always enjoy our chats, and I love your books. So I'm really excited for us to talk about your new book that's coming out or will be out when this posts, since we're recording a little early. Anyway, we're going to jump in and I want to start off as usual with you just introducing yourself to anyone watching who may not know who you are. Just tell a little bit about you and what you want people to know.
I'm Amanda Cox. I am from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and
Woo-hoo.
I'm married with three kids. And I love my life in Tennessee. I'm born and raised here, so all of my stories, even if they're not fully set in Tennessee, always have a little nod to a Tennessee setting in the story. So homeschooling mom when I'm not writing, and we love to travel as a family and see what we can see and explore together. And so spend a lot of time traveling but it's nice with our kind of the homeschooling life. It kind of allows us to do some learning in that way. So we have a lot of fun
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
And so in August, sorry, I can't count my books because like some of you are like, wait, am I the one I'm working on? So my sixth novel is coming out, or will be out when this airs, called Things We Cannot Keep. And so I'm really excited to chat about that book. And
Yeah, yeah, me too. I can't wait. As you know, I pre-ordered it twice. So obviously I'm excited to read it. And maybe one of the reasons I love your book so much too is because of the Tennessee setting. Being a, Northwest Georgia, Chattanooga area girl myself, born and raised there too. I love books set in the South and especially Georgia, Tennessee.
yeah.
So you say you grew up there in the Chattanooga area. When you were a child, did you want to be a writer even then, or was there something else on your radar?
I always loved to read and I love stories. I would dabble around with writing, but I wanted to be a veterinarian. And a lot of kids say that, but I was like very serious about it. And I think by the time I was in fifth grade, I had my college picked out that where I wanted to go to school. I would go and like observe vets while they did surgeries and things like that. Like that's what I really wanted. Like I was like sold, this is what I want to do. And it was really funny because it got to the second semester of my senior year in high school. And, I would watch like videos of surgeries that vets would do, and I couldn't watch them anymore. Suddenly I was getting sick. I couldn't like, it
Mm,
was making me like I wasn't even watching them in real time. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And
mm,
it was the scariest thing because for me, because like when you've known what you want to be since you were like in third grade, and then suddenly, right when you're about to start your college career, like you're like, I
yeah,
don't know what I want to do.
yeah.
And then I just felt like God was leading me towards counseling. And so that's what I got my degree in and thought that's what I thought like my life and career was going to be is counseling. And then way led on to way, and here I am writing stories. And a lot of that counseling education goes
Mhm,
into how I write characters and how I put the stories together.
mhm,
And so I love the way that sometimes we think we know
mhm,
and we're so sure about like the plans that we have for ourselves. And it's just such an adventure when you allow God to lead you
mhm.
in that direction. So
Yeah, and
yeah, I wanted to be a veterinarian.
he uses all of our experiences, right,
Yes.
to get us to where he wants us to be. I mean, I look back over our lives too and see the experiences and things that God took us through that are now used in ministry with my husband as a pastor and in the church and in my writing too. It's like all the things that I thought maybe I wanted to do. Counseling was one of them. And I wanted to be an interior decorator. I wanted to be so many different things, a lawyer. So it's like, okay, well, now I'll just write those characters
Right.
with those careers, and kind
Yeah.
of live vicariously through them.
Maybe I'll write a veterinarian character at some
Yeah.
point if I'm not grossed out by the surgery.
Yeah. Just don't make it graphic.
Yeah, no graphic. I don't think anybody really wants that anyway,
No.
except for me as a weird kid.
Yeah, yeah. So, being a writer now, what do you enjoy most about this career that God has led you to?
As far as just the writing itself, I love when kind of that moment just clicks in your head where like you have these different story threads that you're like, okay, I feel like these are about both a part of the story, but I don't know how they fit together. But when you have that moment where it just like clicks in your head, and I don't know, that's a really
Mm-hmm.
fun feeling as far as just the actual writing of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say one of the things that probably surprised me the most that I love about writing is the way seeing that stories that I write connecting with readers.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me as a kid, like I said, I love to read and reading those words and reading stories, I would feel a sense of connection to that story. And so then, I don't know, I guess when I started writing, I just didn't ever picture that as part of the whole scheme of things, is that readers would read my characters and feel a sense of connection. And when readers reach out to me and let me know some of those things, it's like, oh, I feel like I don't know. It feels like a body of Christ kind of moment where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm pouring my heart into a story and that is connecting with another person,
Mm-hmm.
something about that story. Sometimes things that I wouldn't have, even expected that would connect with someone.
Yeah, that is really cool. As you know, just having my first book come out recently and having readers contact me and, say that or reading a review or something, that's like, it's just such an overwhelming feeling to know that something that God allowed me to write and put out there connected with someone and gave them hope or encouragement or help them to know they're not alone.
Hmm.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being a writer is not cheap. It costs a lot of money, conferences and, website and web hosting and all, you know, everything costs so much money. What would you say is the best money you've spent as a writer?
I think the best money that I spent as a writer was going to my first writing conference. And for the reason that that was the best money probably spent was because it was a moment of me kind of taking this writing thing seriously. It wasn't something that I was just kind of like quietly doing in the corner of
Mm-hmm.
my bedroom at my desk, that nobody knew I was doing. I was kind of saying, hey, I'm a writer. And for me, that was a really big step. And it wasn't so much, I mean, there were great things I learned at the conference and people that I met, that connections, those were all wonderful things. Um, but for me, that investment in myself as a writer was a really big deal for me,
Mm-hmm.
to take that step. And then probably the other thing would be the laptop. I told my husband, and that was an investment he made in me. And I told him I wanted to write a story. I didn't even know if I could write a story at that point. I'm just like, I want to. And he's like, let's go get you a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I don't think we should we should probably not do that. Because I mean, at the time we really didn't have it in the budget for a new computer. But I think that was a vote of support from him that he
Mm-hmm.
was taking me seriously, even if I wasn't quite ready to take myself seriously.
Yep.
So those were a couple of things that
Mm-hmm.
investment, and it wasn't so much the things themselves, but it was kind of just that really going to take this
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah. I can relate to that so much. uh, like exactly like you, the conference and the laptop and all the things. It's just like, okay, I'm really doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all in now.
Yep. Yep. So looking back now, however many years ago it was when you started, what would you tell your younger writing self? Something you didn't know then, but now you're like, ah, yeah.
I probably couldn't take the advice, but I would tell my younger writing self to trust my instinct more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was always I always went into it with the mindset to learn and to absorb as much as I possibly can. And that's a really good thing. I definitely don't suggest going into it thinking you know everything and
No.
you've got it all together. But at the same time, I was always, especially at first, I was trying to incorporate so many different things that I learned that I almost didn't have the chance to hear my own writing voice for a little bit. And so along the way, I've learned to trust my writing instinct and know when the story is good and even when the story is not good. There's been books I've turned in where I'm like, I know my editor is going to say something about this, but I don't know how to fix it yet. But I'm leaving that there
Mm,
um, so that we can work through that piece together.
mm,
But that's an instinct that I'm learning to trust in my writing to know when it's right and when there still needs to be work done. And you can give that advice, but it's kind of a learning process too. So,
yeah.
like I said, I'm not sure my younger self could take that advice. But yeah, that's been a part
Hmm.
of the journey for me.
Yeah. So writing takes a lot of time, to draft it. Then there's all the editing and the back and forth. And you have a husband, you have children, you homeschool. How do you balance your life and family obligations with all of your writing responsibilities?
I try to protect the times for writing as well as protect certain family time and their off limits from things crossing over. So I get up really early in the morning to write before everyone's awake, and that is my dedicated writing time, which can be tough because I'm not a morning person, but it is the time that I know that it won't be interrupted, and I need that little bit of time to get things done that won't be interrupted. So I try to protect that, and then once everybody's moving for the day, I try to make sure like our homeschool time, that's no go on writing responsibilities. After they're done for the day, I might save that for some marketing time. And so I just have these pockets that I'm like, these are the times that I work, these are the times that I don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it can be a challenge. I mean, as you know, stories are living in our heads all the time, and sometimes as a writer, our temptation is want to go off into the world to work on the book, or to totally procrastinate and pretend that that also doesn't exist
Yeah.
at times. But I try to be consistent, and consistency is key for me.
So how many hours in the morning before everybody gets up do you get up and have time for writing?
I usually get up around between 5:30 and 6, depending on how awake I am. And I spend some time in the morning with my cup of coffee, reading the word every morning, and then I try to write for 2 to 3 hours. And so that's kind of how I try to start my day. And I found that if I do that every day, some days a lot of words get down. There are some days where I kind of stare at my screen, half awake, but I'm there. Um, and so yeah, if I do that, the book gets done.
Yeah. Wow. Good for you. Because I'm not a morning person either.
Hard.
It's tough. I don't think my brain is engaged enough to write anything coherent at that hour. But
It's
yeah.
questionable with me sometimes, but
Well, let's talk about this new book a little bit, Things We Cannot Keep. The setting you mentioned, Tennessee settings, is this book set in Tennessee or somewhere else?
so this one is primarily set in Fairhope, Alabama, but she's from Tennessee. So when she was 18 years old, my main character, Tess, ran away from home at 18 and ended up in Fairhope, Alabama. Not the intended destination, but that's where she ended up. And sort of started over with a new life, with a new name. And over the past 18 years has kind of built this repair shop for heirlooms. And so she has a team of craftspeople that come in. They all have their respected expertise, and she works on timepieces. And she's pretty happy in this little life that she's built separate from her past. And she just lives vicariously through other people's happy family memories that she hears because she doesn't really have any of her own. And so she just kind of gets lost in their world and their stories. All is going pretty well until this package arrives at her door, probably because of some national media attention that her shop has gotten. Someone has found her who knows her old name from her hometown and knows where she's at. She knows this by the address on the box, and she really doesn't want to open that because it's kind of this sense of I've ignored my past all this time, and if I open this box, I can't put whatever it is back in. That's kind of the feeling she has. So she tries to ignore that and works for a little bit until her ex-best friend, ex-sweetheart shows up on her doorstep as well, and he's not quite so easy to ignore.
Mhm.
And eventually, she ends up opening the box, and there's this lost heirloom inside. And the missive is like it's from an anonymous person, and asking her to repair it and to find its rightful owner. And it turns out that finding the rightful owner of this heirloom is more complicated than she imagined, and she ends up on a bit of a cross-continental journey, and along the way is having to confront some of her own past in order to get this heirloom back home. So,
Wow. So is this a real location in Alabama or is it fictional?
so Fairhope is a real place,
Okay.
and she's from a little town called Wilder, Tennessee, and that is also a real place.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So is there a little romance thread in the book or?
It's a bit of a complicated um, romance thread because they were best friends and kind of had a complicated relationship and they parted under some not so great terms. And so now he is back in the area and he says that he's there wanting forgiveness for the things that happened in their parting. And but she doesn't trust him because he's always a bit of a trickster and a prankster and has a lot of charm. And so they have a bit of complicated, I don't know if romance would be the way that I would describe their relationship throughout the book, but it's
Mhm.
definitely one of mending relationships and
Mhm. Yeah.
things like that.
Okay. So talking about the characters, which one would you say was the easiest for you to write and why is that?
So, my character, the ex-best friend, ex-sweetheart, Elliot, was a lot of fun to write for me because, like I said, he's very charming. He's has a way of just making people smile. And but like I said, Tess doesn't trust that because she's seen the ways that he's got himself into and out of trouble with this charm of his. And so she still sees him as like this 18-year-old boy and the mischief that he got into. And he's still in many ways similar to that. Um, but now he's 36. So and he's like, give me the chance. So they have like the way that they kind of engage together in conversation. Those were really fun to write. And it was just fun to write his character because a little bit like he's reminded me of my husband a little bit because my husband has that way of just being charming and putting people at ease and making people smile. And so that is not my personality, I don't feel like, but it was fun to write a character that had those gifts and talents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate. My husband is the jokester and the, happy smiley, and I'm the serious, get the job done kind of person. I can relate to that. Was there a character who was challenging for you?
I feel like Tess was a bit of a challenge, but not in the writing of it because, see, I just had a heart for Tess. As I'm writing her, like I know her backstory. I know exactly why she is the way that she is. And so like I just feel very compassionate towards her as I'm writing her. And I'm enjoying writing her character. She is reserved in a lot of ways. She kind of has this, in my mind, had sort of a wry sense of humor, a little sarcastic, but like in a good-natured sort of teasing way. And so in my mind, like I think she's kind of an, lovely character. And I turned the book into my editor and she's like, she's mean. And I'm just like, she's not, she's not mean. And so it was a challenge to edit her in a way that preserves some of those elements, but um, because sometimes the character you see in your head and that you
Mhm.
feel as a writer hasn't exactly been translated on the page. And I had
Yeah.
had some time away from the book at that point. So I'm reading it back through with my editor's point of view. And I'm just like, okay, she does sound kind of mean. But I'm like, I can't have her winking at everything she says to like indicate that she doesn't mean, because that'll just make her weird and creepy.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
was a bit of a challenge to find a way to soften some elements of Tess and show some of those qualities that were good and kind, that really were underneath, but a lot of people couldn't see at the beginning. So.
Mhm. Yeah, that is tough because the character in my first book, Beth, some readers were like, I don't really like her. And so she was kind of modeled after me. And I'm like, oh, you don't like me.
It's like, oof.
I know. Yeah, that was tough. I had to soften her too. So, do you have a favorite quote from your book, Things We Cannot Keep?
I think my favorite quote, it's a short quote, and it's that our stories don't have to be pain-free to be beautiful.
Mhm.
Because Tess has, like I said, she has a really complicated past. She tries to completely leave it behind. And so she spends her days like hearing people's lovely stories about their grandpa or their great aunt or whoever. Um, because when you have an heirloom, you're not going to go and tell stories about how terrible they were, or even if, people are all complex. We have those like good qualities, we have our weaknesses, but people don't talk about those parts of it when they're bringing an heirloom. So she got sort of these curated stories of people's lives, and she's holding that up against her messy family history. And so part of the learning aspect of this story for her is that to see the beauty in her story, even though her story is not like this beautiful landscape. It's kind of messy. And I think readers may relate to that with the world that we live in with like Instagram and Facebook. And we see these curated versions of people's lives, and we have a tendency to say, to hold up the mess that we can see
Yeah.
of our own life to the pretty picture that is
Mhm.
portrayed.
Yeah. So they're highlight reels to our mess.
Yeah, right.
Right. So is that what you would think is the main takeaway for readers when they finish the book, or are there other things that you are hoping readers will take away?
I think that's a big one. Another big element of the story is the complexity of forgiveness. That, it can be easy to say, I forgive you, but sometimes the walking that out can be a bit complicated, particularly in situations where someone isn't asking for forgiveness and they're not sorry, but you're still carrying some of the pain from whatever has happened. And so that's a big theme of the book for Tess also. There are things that she's carrying around because forgiveness can be complicated.
Yes, yes, it can. So, do you think that God taught you something through writing this book?
I think it was a really nice moment for me to reflect on some things that God has walked through with me in relationship to forgiveness. It wasn't necessarily a present circumstance, but it was definitely taking some time to remember some of those lessons as I was writing Tessa's story, to remember some things God had, walked through with me in complicated forgiveness situations. Um, Tess has a mentor named Amos who is a little further on the path of processing forgiveness than she is, and so it was nice to kind of have those two people having conversations about what forgiveness means and what it looks like.
Hmm. Sounds great. So, I'm curious if you read book reviews or not, and how you deal with bad or good ones.
I do not read reviews. With the exception of pre-release and my launch team reviews, I do read those, and I read them for a very specific reason, because those people are typically people who are my target audience. They've read my books before, they know who I am as a writer, and it is for me, it is good information to see how this new story is resonating or what parts of it are resonating with them. But then after that kind of pre release season is over, I don't read them anymore.
Mm,
Um, I tend to, for a couple different reasons. One is whether it's a really, really good review or a terrible review, it can get in my head a little bit. And at that point, I'm drafting the new story. And so even if it's like a really complimentary review, and I'm sitting there working on this brand new baby story that is a mess of notes on paper, my brain wants to compare that finished, been through multiple rounds of edits, complete, hold it in your hands book to this new baby idea. And so I'll be like, oh, I can't do like it just
mhm,
gets in my head.
yeah,
And that can be the same for negative reviews too. Just it's distracting. So
mhm,
I don't typically do that. I won't say never. The temptation definitely arises at times. But the thing that I've learned is find myself wanting to look through reviews for some sort of validation. And it comes after like a quiet time after a big emotional things like a book release or a very busy season. And
Mhm.
so like in those quiet moments, I'm looking for validation and I'm like, I don't need to go to my reviews for that.
Mhm.
I need to go to the Lord for that. And that's where my validation for my writing and for what I do, that's where it needs to come from.
Mhm.
And so I challenge myself when I am tempted to go looking at reviews for that because I have a great editorial team that I have a lot of trust with that I don't go to my reviews to learn how to write. Sometimes I hear that readers say, "Well, I want to write this review to help the author," and I'm like, I don't. There's so many differing, varying opinions
Mhm.
of what a good book is if you look that broadly. But I have people who know who I am and who I write that I trust to tell me
Mhm.
things that need to be improved.
Yeah, that's great. So, has it been that way for you from the beginning when you were a new writer with your first book or your second book? Did you read more reviews then, or have you always just said, nope, I'm not going to do that?
I probably did a little bit more with the first book, but then kind of learned that that was distracting.
Hmm.
I'm like, this isn't actually helpful. Sometimes I'll have someone like if I'm wanting to quote reviews or things like that, I'll have someone be like, okay, go find something that has like a nice line or something to share. And like I said, I do read my pre-release ones because I do find that information to be helpful to know
Hmm.
what's resonating.
Hmm. So, this book, what's the launch date for Things We Cannot Keep?
August 18th.
Okay, August 18th. And what's around the corner after that? What can we look forward to?
So my next book is coming out May 2027. Yes, that's correct. I'm not sure what date
When you
yet, but
have
it'll
so
be
many going on, it's hard to keep track, right?
yes, yes. Different I have all these different dates for different things bouncing around in my head. But yes, May 2027, and it's called The Flight of Holly Blue. And it's a sort of coming of age family drama. And it's about this young girl who has believes her father is a butterfly scientist, so she maintains all the milkweed in her backyard for the migratory monarchs because that's what she believes that he studies, and that's why he's not there, and believes that the same instinct that brings those monarchs back are eventually going to bring her dad back. But her mom has been keeping some secrets from her as far as why he's really not in their life because she just really didn't feel like she was old enough to handle it. But now she's 13 and secrets are starting to, there's starting to be some holes in the story that she has painted for her. And so it's a good mother-daughter coming of age type story of learning how to talk about the hard things.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the first time I've heard the title. Um,
Yes, that's new. That's
okay. Gonna say I haven't heard that before.
yes, yes, that is brand new. That is brand new.
Okay, great. We'll look forward to that. Of course, you're pretty much an auto buy author for me. I love all of your books. So I'm very happy for you and just following your journey and success. And I wish you continued success because I know that you're doing this to honor God and he's honoring you in return for putting him first. So thank you for giving us great stories to entertain and to challenge us. So wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you here again.
Yeah, great to be here.